You ended up holding the tag team titles with Mick Foley. He talks about you all the time.
Oh, he talks about me constantly.
Yeah.
His life story would be much like his penis, a short one, if he didn't have the material added in it with using me. You know, he wouldn't have a stand-up act, which he doesn't really stand up because he's too lazy. He sits down all the time. He totally relies on me. I don't know why he's so obsessed with me, but he is, and I'm thrilled that he is because it just keeps putting me over and keeps my name out there. So.
Have you ever considered doing your own comedy tour and making jokes about him?
I almost went and did a stand-up thing. And maybe I will, and the time's right, to do jokes about Mick, which I could listen. We like call it like it's a verbal sparring match, and you just like a boxing match, you get a right cross, you get the guy up against the ropes, things like that. I don't know how many times I've knocked him out verbally, just drilled him, knocked him out, and and in public, let him get himself over, but when it's just he and I beat him up.
And the final question I have for you about Mick is, what do you think of this rather large beard that he has right now?
Is he trying to use that to go into the stores and be able to shoplift? What is the purpose of that thing? I've seen hobos with less facial hair. I've seen gorillas with less hair on their vaginas. And let's face it, his face does look like a gorilla's vagina. So.
You worked with Cactus Jack and Buzz Sawyer as part of this Slaughterhouse group in those days. What were your thoughts on Cactus in the early days?
Well, I never thought, I knew he was going to be good, but I never thought he'd become the star he was. Because the thing was, I thought he could maybe become the #1 guy in WCW. But when he went to New York, he was against the mold that Vince had all the big jack bodybuilders. And I said, I think they're going to lose him in the shuffle. But when, he came in there as Mankind, it really stuck out. And he took some horrible bumps, you know what I mean? The one off the cage and through the cage, and he busts his ass to get where he is. I would love to have seen what would have happened if Buzz and him had stayed together with me, because Buzz was a solid performer. He was legit amateur wrestler, and the dynamics between those two was completely different. Buzz took good bumps too, but nothing like Cactus, and Cactus was a little bit more showman than Buzz. Even though Buzz was a showman, Buzz was solid work. I worked a lot with Buzz and as a team with Buzz. I think that was a lost chance because of Jim Herd.
And Buzz was another guy, from what I understand, that was legitimately insane.
He was crazy. Crazy. I mean, I saw him do some crazy stuff. I mean, he had demons, and we didn't know what happened to him, but something wasn't right there. I mean, he would eat 2 Big Macs and drink half a liter of Coke, go work for 45 minutes after he ate it. Halfway through the match, he'd crawl underneath the ring and puke his guts out, slobber it off, and then continue the match non-stop pace.
And just finally on Cactus Jack, what do you think of Shane McMahon copying his cage bump recently?
Here's the thing. I think Shane McMahon did that to show the boys that he'll do anything to get stuff over, but he hadn't been in the ring for quite a while. He's lucky. I've heard that he cracked ribs and maybe got something wrong with his spleen. He's lucky that he's alive. I hope to God he never does it again, because you can't advertise he's going to do that. So the people that came didn't know he was going to go off the cage. I think he took a chance on his life. And I don't think Cactus had taken wild bumps before. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, the top of that cage wasn't supposed to go through,
No,
right?
according to the
According to
Yeah,
the story, right?
yeah.
And if you look, the tooth is in his nose, and he's lucky he didn't get hurt. But the jump for Cactus, I could see him doing that
yeah.
because that was his style. Okay, it's a lot higher, but when he first came in, I beat his tag team partner, but after the match, I had him slam the guy on the floor and run down the apron. Jimmy Cornette told me about it, and dive and drop an elbow on the guy on concrete. I'd never seen that before. So I think him jumping off the cage was a lot safer, him jumping off the cage, because he has done crazy bumps before, than Shane, who'd been away from the business for a long time, doing that.
And the other thing that I noticed about that is when Shane did it, it just looked like a stunt. It didn't look. First of all, the timing seemed off for the thing with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
Kevin was already getting up, and then it just seemed like a planned stunt. Whereas when Foley did it, it seemed like it could have happened in the course of a match.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And you worked with Cactus Jack, as you mentioned. How was that?
Yeah, Cactus didn't like me working because by this time I'm on a roll, dude. I'm super rock starring it at this point. And Cactus didn't like me going to the ring drunk. In fact, but it was poetry, me and that dude in the ring. He didn't really like me outside of the ring much. You know, we weren't like boys. You know, Cactus is a different kind of dude. But in the ring, dude, it was easy. It was just easy with me and him. I would do most of the calling. That's most of my career. I did the calling, no matter who I was in the ring with. It was just, except like Lawler and stuff like that. But I'm always doing the calling. What was it called? Where was I at?
Working with Cactus Jack.
Oh yeah, working with Cactus. So Cactus calls fucking Todd Gordon, right? Cactus doesn't really know how tight me and Todd are. So Todd's like right on the phone. He goes, Cactus refuses to work with you. Cactus refuses to work with you if you drink before your match. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know whose idea it was, me or Todd, but so I didn't go into the locker room. We're the main event, me and Cactus. I didn't go into the locker room like I wasn't even there. My music plays. I said, make sure I come out to the ring and obviously I was drinking on the freaking, I remember we were in Briarcliff, place actually not too far from here, probably as the crow flies, like maybe 5 miles or so. And we're out, I'm drinking in the graveyard. Don't say that story, hack. All right, there was a graveyard right across the street. So I'm drinking in the graveyard. I always had this thing with graveyards. And walked into the ring. I was drunk. I said, well, so Cactus, I heard you call Todd Gordon. I told the people the whole story. I said, well, I'm drunk. You're going to wrestle me? He had to come out then. What's he going to do? Stay in the locker room? So that's how I dealt with that situation. And we're cool now. I had a problem with him in England one time because this dude, this promoter in England that I liked a lot, hired him, and the deal was Cactus. If Cactus didn't get his money by a certain time or something, then the payment doubles. So the dude sent the money in Western Union back then, but what was Mick Foley, but the last name was spelled wrong, Foley, or however the little bit of spelling problem was. So Cactus doesn't get his money for like, I don't know, it maybe took an hour to figure it the fuck out. But then he charged my boy double to come, you know what I mean? And I was pissed off at him about that. I let him know at the one time.
You know, Mick he's got to be the most courageous man I've ever met. Good friend. He's came out publicly for me recently, and I love him to death. But he, you know, the bumps he took with the Undertaker on the cage is just, I mean, it's you know, for me to sit here and say that it's off the chart, it's like from a 1 to 10, it's a 12. It doesn't even do those bumps justice. It's like 20. For him to take that bump off the top rope. You know that one bump where he was on the corner of the cage and Undertaker threw him off, and he just kind of off of one leg off the top of that cage, he he rotated and landed kind of on his shoulder and back. Well, what if he had rotated just a little bit, nosedived?
Yeah.
And he hits his shoulder, but he hits his head. At the same time, he's dead. And so it wasn't just the fact that he took those bumps. I mean, probably some good athleticism was the reason he's alive. And then the one through the cage, one straight down through. And, my God, and let me get to me real quick. But the one, I remember he had a tooth that fell out and was in his nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, really, things we did, I power bombed him on the cement. And I'm telling you, he was a big dude at this time. He's lost some weight. He's lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
Why are you doing that? Yeah.
well, he did it, through Dallas Page. And he went down there and got some advice. And I started out with him and then, went on his own. Because, you can't stay down there for 6 months in his house. So, you have to, you get started with him and then you go away and you have to do it on your own. But certainly Diamond is the catalyst of that. And he looks great. You saw him on Monday Night Raw just the other night. But, I power bombed him. He was probably 350 pounds. And I knew he'd be a load. So, I really grunted and I got him up pretty high. And, man, he splatted on that cement. But looking back, you go, well, all that just, even the power bomb on the cement, pales by comparison from taking that bump off the top. It's like, so.
And what was your reaction when he lost his ear in that match? That wasn't anything to do with your fault. His ear was caught in the cables.
But it was caught in the cables and it was tore off. My hand did rip it off finally, but I think it was partially torn and I tore it off the rest of the way. I think that'd be fair to say. At first I was shocked and then I thought, hell, Mick Foley didn't blink an eye, so I'm like, shit, is he gonna stop or what are we gonna do? He just lost his ear. And the funny part was, Mick's going, hit me, Leon, hit me. So his ear was bleeding. So, my clubs that those big clubs I use. So I hit him. Man, it just, whatever was left out of there just flew. So I hit it, man. It just, rest of it, there's a little chunk left on there and it just flew off. And blood everywhere. And the ref went over, he saw where the initial part of the ear fell off. And he went and grabbed it. He came over to the both of us and goes, here's your ear, Foley. I think I kicked the ref in the stomach and said, drop it, we'll get it later. God, we're in the middle of a match. What do you want us to do with that damn tear? We should have stopped the match and went, oh, God, that's interesting. I'm getting tired. That's some punch drunk.
Mick was just another one that, just great to work with. Just great to work with. And that's why, bro, when I watched that promo last Monday night, and I'm going back to the things that we wrote for Mick, the things that we wrote with Mick, the things that I produced Mick doing. And then I saw this, and I'm like, God, bro, I felt so bad for him. But he was, he's a great man. He's a great human being, man, and he's just a great guy.
What was your reaction to that Hell in the Cell match? Because I'm sure you were writing on that.
I was, bro. I'll never forget, man. I love telling this story all the time, but when they wheeled him in the back, I was right there, and I'm looking at him on the gurney, and his freaking teeth were through his lip. And I was really worried about him physically. I knew his kids were there. And I'll never forget, I just said to him, I said, Mick, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I'll never forget, he looked up at me after that match and everything that he went through and what he put his body through. And he looked up at me and he goes, Vince, was it better than Sean's match? And like at that time, I realized just how important his performance meant to him, that he was literally willing to cripple himself in order to give the best performance. I can't comprehend that. I can't comprehend that. And I just remember looking at him and saying, bro, are you freaking nuts? You could have killed yourself out there, and he was worried about topping Sean's match. But that's everything you need to know about Mick Foley.
Was Mick Foley there with you from the start?
No, Mick Foley, that was 1982. I graduated from high school, and 82 through 86 went to Bethany. 1985, Dominic opened his school in 84. It was late 84 that I started training with Dominic and then working some independent shows. Sometime within that next year, it was around 85, that Dominic told me, because he didn't charge me to train, but my job was to get to the school early, unlock it, turn the heat on, clean everything up, shovel the sidewalks off in the winter, etc. And he told me, tomorrow there's a new kid coming, his name's Mickey. So I got there about 6 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black and a bunch of snow had fallen. And this old beaten up car is sitting there and it's running. But I walk up and look in, and there's garbage all through the car. It looked like a homeless person living there. And I couldn't see any physical features. Just a big mound of like hair and blanket, and it's all covered up. And at first I thought like somebody gassed themselves, somebody committed suicide, And I knocked on the window and nothing, and finally started moving, and pulled out, and he said, "Are you Troy?" And I said, "Are you Mickey?" And he said, "Yeah, that's how we met." It was 1985 that he started coming to the Dominic School. And I'm sure you've seen the footage that he took as a film student at Dominic School when we were a lot of snot-nosed kids.
So I'm guessing your first impression of him wasn't of a future world champion.
Not at all, but nor for me. I mean, when we went into training, I remember us talking about, having a career. Not that either of us endeavored to. He was in film school and I was in college for politics, and at that time as a trainee, you look at the guys on TV and you think of the guys you've grown up watching: Bruno, Harley Race, Jake Roberts, Paul Orndorff, and all these legendary wrestlers, Dominic DeNucci, and you can't envision yourself anywhere near as good as them. You're having trouble getting the arm dragged down or taking a backdrop. So for neither of us at any time that we were at Dominic School, do I ever remember anybody in that school thinking like, "Hey, we're going to go on to be a champion or even have a career in the business."
And the one other story you brought up yesterday off camera that not many people have heard about was, I guess, an altercation between your friend Mick Foley and Ric Flair.
Oh yeah, there was in St. Louis I think it was a TV.
Were you a witness to that?
No, I heard about it. I came in later, yeah, and they had gotten into a fight in catering or something apparently. Because Mick and Rick had Mick had always carried a grudge against Rick for something when Rick was on the booking committee or something in WCW, and he just, and then they I guess you could call it a fight. Rick threw a punch and Mick kind of laughed it off, and then people came in and broke it up, and that was about it. So, yeah.
Did you ever deal much with Ric Flair in your career?
Yeah, I mean, when I when I went out to Missouri, Rick was out there. I met him in like 1982. Rick was, he was a cool guy. He was always classy. He would like, you got paid, so much for each tape that you would work, and Rick would give like guys extra money if they really put him over well on in a match. He'd give them a couple $100 or whatever. A lot of guys would do that, as a sign of respect to the guy for putting them over on TV. And that's something that's lost, is that sense of appreciation for a person who's willing to do the favor, because that's really what it is. When somebody loses for you, they're doing you a favor. And, you don't really win. That was the whole Job Squad thing. The whole Job Squad thing was because there were a lot of people in WWE at the time who really thought they fucking won matches. And, I started joking around about it being a Job Squad because you don't really fucking beat people. There were guys that were like, "Well, who did he ever beat?" I'm like, "Same fucking people you did. The ones that Vince McMahon told to lose. You don't really win, and we don't really lose." It's a mutual thing. The guy's doing you a favor, and in return, it's expected that you'll do the same for him when the time comes. And, Rick was a very respectful guy, and guys would do a job for him. He would give them extra money in appreciation for them doing that. And a lot of guys did do that, even in WWE, when it was WWF back in the day. Guys don't know that anymore. They don't learn that. You know, they don't understand that. That's kind of too like in the old days, baby faces would sell merch and they would give a percentage of their merch to the heel, like 20% to the heel, because if the heel didn't get them over, then they wouldn't be able to sell merch. A lot of things that unfortunately have gotten lost, and it's a lot of that has to do with a mutual respect. You know, you can shake my hand all you want, but if you were to come to me and I was to do you a favor by putting you over on TV and you gave me your payoff as a thank you, that says more, because I'm not going on the live events, I'm not going on the house shows to make that money. You are, and by me putting you over, that's going to give you the opportunity to do that. And you know, or if I'm the heel and you're the babyface and you go out and you make $300 extra on merch and you give me 20%. You know, that says something as far as your respect for me, more than it does you shaking my fucking hand and you go out and make $300 and keep it all for yourself. Because I can't go out and sell merch because I'm a heel and that's not my spot.
Nobody complained about somebody being stiff.
What's your memories of Mick Foley? I don't know. I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. There was an A&E biography about him, and he actually talked about you. I guess he had done a really good job of getting over one night. He went out to his car and all of his tires were flat. And I guess he had said something to you and you were like, "Good job, kid. That's how you get over."
I kind of remember Gary Young had told me, you know, Gary, that's an underused talent, Gary Young. But Gary had told me before Cactus come to me, and he told me he was going to take care of him. And so I told, yeah, you know, Cactus, boy, you must have got some good heat tonight then. You're getting there, buddy. That's what we're trying for. But Cactus, God love him. I had, when I met Cactus and Gary, I had working that light heavyweight title belt angle with Jeff. I'd flew to Memphis and was watching matches, looking for talent, and watched Gary and Cactus. I don't remember who they were working with, and they put them over, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I went to Little Man. I said, you got plans for this Cactus and Gary Young? He said, well, you have to ask Lawler. He's booking. And so I asked Lawler. He said, no, they've about run their course here. I said, my God, can I have them in Dallas? And he said, well, you have to ask them. And I said, I'm going to ask them right now. And anyway, boom, very shortly they were in Dallas. And that's when we really started taking off after the Iceman and my angle. And Iceman is the guy that turned me babyface in Dallas. And then Gary and Cactus. Cactus was so smooth, but so reckless. And by saying reckless, I mean reckless to his own self. He never hurt me, but oh my God, he would beg me, please dump me over the top into the first row of bleachers. You know, Cactus, you're crazy. I ain't giving you that bump. No, I want to. And he would beg you to give him these crazy bumps. And I thought, buddy, I'm not going to be the one that cripples you. And I think Undertaker was. It wasn't me. But it super attitude. And God, him and Gary Young, we hit them under the ring into Sportatorium one afternoon, even before concessions or any of the crew opening the building and everything. They stayed under that ring for hours that day to shoot that angle where they come up in the cage with the cage match, a blow off with me and Akbar. And they came out from under the ring and killed me for the 10th time. But yeah, Cactus was super, and broke my heart when he gave his notice. But I'd brought Robert Fuller in for a big show at the Devil's Bowl, I think, a demolition derby thing we'd had. And Robert had talked him into going to Pensacola. And but I gave Cactus his first big TV break. And, you know, he actually called me 2 or 3 years ago out of the blue and thanked me for his run in Dallas. And I thanked him for help getting me over in Dallas. So, yeah, Cactus was super people, him and Gary.
What about Mick Foley? He was also working for you for a while.
Yeah, Mick worked for me in Dallas, and I sat down with Mick, and I said, Mick, God hadn't blessed you with the right physique to be a superstar in this business. He said, I love the business. I said, why don't you start showing up at TV and learn the editing side of it? And he did, and he took to it like a duck to water, and then turned around and proved me wrong at WWE, becoming a real superstar.
Yeah, Mick and I have been friends, for a lot of years, and we just hit it off. I mean, it was just, I don't know why, we just connected, and we like, not bragging or putting it over, but like on screen we have like a chemistry where we just work like Martin and Lewis, or any other comedy duo. It just clicks, and we don't have to try or anything. And we were in the car, we'd be traveling together, and we'd do the verbal sparring where it was like boxing, but we'd use put downs and jokes on each other, and we would equate them to stinging them with a right or a left or an uppercut, or you got a standing 8 out of that, or have him up against the ropes, or a knockout. I got to be honest, I knocked Mick out a lot. But then Mick took it outside of the car, took it into the locker room, and then got an audience, and then took it on the internet when the internet was just starting to come around, and then took it onto TV, and then took it into his books, and then just kept going with it to the point where now he's like literally obsessed, where it seems like anybody that would be that preoccupied with another person might have some kind of sexual attraction or something. It's kind of weird, a little freaky.
This episode is going to be all about Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, an old buddy of yours, an old friend of yours. Just really to kind of first start, where did you first meet Mick? Was it WCW in 1990? I mean, where did you really even first hear of him? And then where did you first meet him?
Yeah, when there was a booking committee, and we'd have this booking committee, Jimmy Cornette, who, nothing gets by Jimmy Cornette. This is really pre-internet days, when you guys were still, when I say you guys, we were all trading tapes. Jimmy kept on pushing for Mick. So we brought him in, and he was in a job match, on a tag match on TV. And Jimmy said, but he does this great elbow off the apron. So because he was going to do a job, I didn't want him to get lost. So I had him go give the guy that had beat his partner a slam, and then run off the apron and drop the elbow. And after that, I was a big Mick Foley fan. And, Mick was the guy when it happened. The biggest mistake ever made in network television. Tony Schiavone was told out of the words, Mick Foley just won the WWE belt. I turned to Ric Flair and I said, we have just lost the war. Because I knew they were going to have a cage match, the Hell in the Cell match. I didn't know what they were going to do, but I knew Mick wasn't going to let that moment pass. And brother, to me, to this day, how do you top that? If I was going to, John, you and I never knew what professional wrestling was, but we knew it was some kind of combat sport. And somebody Jimmy Cornette took us in a room, and we were sitting there and we watched that. Would you think what Mick did was fake?
No, hell no. Nope.
I mean,
not, the bump off the cage was enough, but the one backwards through it, wow. Well, and then the famous match with him and The Rock. I mean, handcuffed with your hands behind your back and the chair bouncing off your head like they're playing ping pong with your head. My God. I mean, it was, you and I talk about willing suspense and disbelief. You couldn't believe that it was nothing but real. And, Mick saved them along with everybody else. Everything came the perfect storm. And I guess that ingredient that they had, like The Rock and Austin and the Click and DX rather than the Click at the time. And when Mick came there, put a little bit of a different flavor to it, and it exploded, and rightfully so, because it was very entertaining and everybody was different. And that's why Mick stood out, because he was different. I always say this, John, name me 5 guys that have drawn huge money and the wrestling business that didn't that wore a shirt.
True. Yeah. You got to try to think of like, oh man, yeah, you're right. That's a weird thing, but
Mick
yeah,
Foley.
obviously, yeah,
I got
yeah,
one. Mick Foley. Give me another
yep,
one.
yeah, really can't. Yeah,
No,
I was trying to think of somebody besides Foley. Yeah, you really can't. Yep.
no. So Mick is very unique to himself. There's not going to be another Mick Foley. I mean, could you imagine if you and I were in a room and we want to explain that finish off the cage? Well, he's going to throw you off the cage and you're going to dive 22 feet through a table. Then you're going to climb up the cage with Chainsaw Charlie pushing your ass up there. And then he's going to slam you through it and you're going to bounce off the mat like a dead slab of meat. Could you imagine trying to say that to somebody? I can't.
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah. And because of that, Mick has, and he's a great talker. One of the best mic men in the world. And I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people don't give Mick enough credit for his working ability either. Even when Mick was really heavy, he never blew up in the ring, which is strange.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's a tremendous, there's no been like him before him or since him. So my hats are off to Mick Foley. I mean, he really, really, he saved their company, and he's a unique personality. And I'm glad to see that he looks great now. You know what I mean? He seems to be over some of the injuries he's had. So good to Mick.
So the Hell in a Cell happened the summer of '98, leading into the Raw, really the taped Raw, where he wins the world title. When Shivani says that, and obviously he's going to beat The Rock that night with a little help of Steve Austin, but it was taped, and obviously Shivani's being fed that. Is Bischoff giving Shivani that line? Is that what happened there?
Yes. There was a problem. Eric and Mick didn't get along. I don't know what it was about, but a lot of people didn't see Mick in the light that other people saw. He was a polarizing character, Mick. He had problems with Rick for years, or Rick and him didn't see eye to eye. I shouldn't say it that way. And but then the other NWA champion, Terry Funk, he was Terry's protege. So with Mick, it's like the first time you go out for sushi, you either love it or hate it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's what Mick was, and I think that's what got Mick over too, being so polarizing, and rightfully so, because I'm not blaming that if Eric said it, and I think he did, because Tony wouldn't take it upon himself. I don't think that Eric did anything wrong. It was his opinion that's mixed. And if you had asked people before that, should he have said it? 50% of them would have said yes.
Yep. True. It was a crazy thing, but obviously it got him over big time. And that night when he beats The Rock and becomes the champion, such a shocking moment. People were shocked. So literally when Shivani says he wins the title, 800,000 people flicked over because they wanted to see him win the title. So it did the exact opposite of what WCW wanted it. And that worked so well in the past, giving out the spoilers. This is the one time it backfired, and WCW would never win the ratings ever again.
It just show you how beloved Mick was. You know, I was teamed with Mick, and I got to work with Mick one time. We had to lose a leave town when he was left WCW, and I thought we had a pretty fair match. You know, I've told you styles make a match. Our styles were similar, so it wasn't that intriguing. But Mick is a great worker, and then he went to Wings with Victor Chionis because I had just come back from Wings, so he basically got my job there, and then he got with Funk and Sabu and Chic, and they did huge business. So Mick has drawn money just about from the day he put his flannel shirt on until right now. Mick draws money.
Yeah, it's one of those things that he's almost underrated in a certain aspect because Austin and The Rock were part of the Attitude Era, and they were like the two big, the big guys, the big cojones, the big draws. And they always say, like, obviously Undertaker's there. He's kind of like the 1A, or the other guy, one not really the top guy, but he's equal with the top. And then you throw Triple H in the mix, but Triple H isn't even at the star power of Mick Foley. I always felt it was Austin, Rock, up in the top, and then Foley really was like that kind of like third draw. He was a huge piece of the puzzle, whether he was feuding with The Rock or feuding with Austin, feuding with Undertaker, obviously, and then eventually feuding with Triple H. But he was such a big part of drawing money for them. I don't think a lot of people realize how important he was to the WWF Attitude Era.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And, it's hard to remember everything. We're talking over 20 years ago. Those interviews he made in the boiler rooms, remember them?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean, they were classic interviews. They were classic Mick Foley interviews. And, and the other thing is, I don't know who came up with that mask for him, but that was a brilliant idea.
Yep, very cool.
It had never been seen. And Mick pulled that off, and he had a cadence in his voice that captured you. It was almost like he was doing the Beauty and the Beast opera, and he was the Beast, and he was really intense. I mean, you hit it really on the head there. He's really underrated for being so over. People forget how over he really was.
Yeah. It's just like remarkable that people just almost like overlook it just because all the other guys. But man, he's right there neck and neck. And obviously he wins the title. WCW never wins again. You got to think like, okay, obviously people liked him winning the title if they never turned back and WCW never won the war.
Yeah. And here's the thing, what's it? Loose lips sink ships.
Mm-hmm.
We not only sank this, we sank the Titanic.
Yep.
Could you imagine if we didn't say that? What might have happened? What might have been? Maybe there wasn't an 800,000 swing in one 30-second span. We never bring that up. There's things that sometimes we overlook, but think about that, John. Listen to what I'm going to say really close.
Yes.
WCW lost more than AEW draws today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
So that's their base, yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing figure. I mean, no one else has ever brought that up to me about how big a number that is until you hit a button on me. That's like somebody's watching AEW and then they had competition. They said Mick Foley won the belt, and boom, they flipped over and there was anybody watching wrestling on the AEW. That's no knock to AEW. It's SmackDown and NXT and the rest of them. That's how hot Mick Foley was.
People were dying for it. They were clamoring for it. And it was shocking, too, when he beat The Rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool stuff. Now, back in 1990, when he first comes to really WCW, it's kind of a little before that, but basically when you start teaming with him in 1990, did you see anything in him right away? Or was one of the things where it's like, oh, this guy's wacky. His style is weird. Like, did you see like, okay, there's money in this guy?
Oh, absolutely. Because first of all, Mick is a very intelligent guy. And Mick is a student of the business. And Mick was smart enough to stay in his lane and not try to get too creative and get outside of his lane. And that's why he got over, because everybody knew there was going to be some outrageous bump. There was going to be not just an outrageous bump with Mick, but somebody was going through a table, a chair, or Lawrence Welk accordion, whatever. People are tuning in to see a Mick Foley show, and Mick gave them a Mick Foley show every time he went out.
It's crazy. Like, just when you think about those early days of him, you could see something was there, but like you said, like it was a crazy bump, something where you were interested in him and watching him. And then him and you is kind of just an interesting pairing. Did you guys get along, like as far as away from wrestling? Did you always get along with him right away?
Oh yeah, I've always liked Mick. We were very cordial to one another. We had a lot of laughs. I mean, I just think Mick is a very, very smart guy. And think about, the question I asked you before, name me 5 guys that have drawn money with shirts on. We got to Mick Foley ended, right? And
Yep.
This is at the height of Hall, Nash, Savage, Sting, Luger, Rock, Austin, Triple H. I could go on and on, right? That all these guys were bigger than life, bodybuilding superhero type bodies, except Mick. He overcame a lot of obstacles, not in his mind, but in promoters' minds. He had to win over, I'm sure, a lot of promoters. And when I say a lot, I mean Vince especially, because Vince likes the big guy. I mean, and anybody that changes their attitude so directly, the way Vince had to do it to give him the belt, means that everybody saw something in Mick. Do you know what I'm saying? Everybody. Yep. And that's very unusual. I don't care who you are. There's going to be, this guy's the greatest worker of all time, yada, yada, blah, blah. And they go, oh, but he blows up occasionally. Oh, but his bumps aren't the best. Oh, but with Mick, there was no oh buts about it.
Thing with Foley too is when he went to WWF in '96 and he was playing that Mankind character, Undertaker was kind of not lame at that point, but he was kind of slowly kind of fading away, and he wasn't really the Undertaker that we knew. He was kind of just, I don't know, slowly fading away. All of a sudden, he feuds with Mankind. Boom, he's right back up there. He's such a big star. Foley always says, "Great job of the Undertaker getting him over." It's kind of the other way around to me. Foley comes in at the behest of Jim Ross, who loved the guy and thought money in him, and thought to Vince like, "Hey, we got to bring this guy in and use this guy." So he gets him. He kind of reinvigorated the Undertaker.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Here is Jim Ross, who grew up psychologically at the lap of Bill Watts, Bill Watts grew up at the lap of Eddie Graham, whose whole thing was you had to look like a wrestler, you had to be able to work like a wrestler, and yet Mick had that strange persona that guys put aside their semi-religious beliefs because, when you have strong beliefs, it almost becomes a cult-like thing. That to put them aside and turn the other way, completely opposite, is a strong testimonial to whatever you've turned to. So that's how invigorating Mick Foley was to the Undertaker. That's a good point, John. I never thought of it that way. That, yeah, he did invigorate the Undertaker. Because who gave the guy the craziest bumps in the history of the business? The Undertaker. It revived him.
Big time.
Yeah.
Now, as far as you and go back to WCW, this is just such a weird match, but I love it. Like, and even going back and watching it, Capital Combat's a very, very fun show, good show, but obviously really known for the return of RoboCop. But I'll leave that where it is. But it's you, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Cactus against Norman the Lunatic and the Road Warriors. You remember this match? Because this, I didn't remember, but I was like, how the heck did I forget this? What a match! What a six-man there. Whew.
Yeah, and I mean, I was in with, the Road Warriors, and Bam Bam Bigelow. When you talk about the greatest big men of all times, he's on the list. You know what I mean? So I was surrounded by, and I was in awe at some of the matches, and it was entertaining and it was good. It told a good story too, because Norman being the lunatic and him finally getting his day.
Were you a part of the booking committee? Like, is everybody equal? Is somebody ahead of somebody? You and Cornette, and it's like, how does that pecking order go?
Well, I think Rick was the head guy, and rightfully so. And Jimmy was just starting out, and on a sponge. Jimmy knew everything about the wrestling business. Jimmy was probably booking matches since the night after he went to the first Memphis show. Jimmy was a really smart guy, and Jimmy had a great aptitude towards the business. So everybody threw ideas in. Jim Ross threw ideas in, but it would be funneled to Rick. And I would say between me, Cornette, and Ross, we kind of would break up the logjam, saying, well, this one's going to take a lot to get through, and put that aside. This one's going to take less time to get through, put it over here. This one's we can get through to Rick right away. And because you got to realize, not only was Rick the head booker, he's the world champion. He had a lot on his plate. And we tried to make it as easy as we could for Rick, too, so he wouldn't have to. and they, have to struggle and say, well, let's think about this. Because the other thing is, our job was to make Rick's job as easy as possible.
Yeah. I guess that's the good way of the committee. It's almost though sometimes the committee could be a bad thing, right? I mean, it really,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
too many opinions.
Yeah. Too many opinions. Too many chefs in the kitchen will spoil. But Rick had chosen guys that he felt comfortable with, and if you didn't, if you were on there were some guys that were on there that was gone after a very short time. You know what I mean? Rick understood that there were some people that had tried to take advantage of their position, where other people were trying to make this thing work. Because the four guys I mentioned, there was other ones that were coming in and out: Terry Funk and Eddie Gilbert, and but the four of us were basically there. Three of us rather, to protect Rick and make it easier on him and make him look good. Because if he looked good, we look good.
Yep. Now this is just a wacky match from a '91 Great American Bash tour. It's a War Games match. It's Barry Windham, El Gigante, Sting, and the Yellow Dog, who was Brian Pillman, defeats Arn Anderson, Cactus Jack, Kevin Sullivan, and One Man Gang. That seems like it should be on a pay-per-view or something. I mean, that's just a random kind of tour. Part of a long leg of a tour there. What a just like interesting match. Guys that maybe shouldn't be in the War Games are in there, but a little bit of a hodgepodge, but possibly match should have been on TV somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, John, I've always liked sometimes that guys should be partners that shouldn't be partners. You know what I mean? It's one of the things I remember when I was first in the business that really attracted me to the thinking side of the business was Eddie Graham would maybe once a year or once every 3 years end up where there was these guys had signed a contract to be tag team partners at a specific date, like a big date in Florida. Like Gasparilla Day was a huge day in Tampa. That's where Jose Gaspar took over. He was a pirate that took over the city, right? And that still today is a huge day in Tampa. Parties, all street vendors, and the matches would always be. In fact, I think Dory Funk won on Jose Gasparilla Day against Gene Kiniski. And Eddie would pull out a thing with these guys a year prior to this, when they were both baby faces, had signed a contract to wrestle as a tag team against, hypothetically, I'm going to say the Road Warriors, against the Road Warriors. Well, prior to this, one of them has turned, and now 3 months out, they have this huge feud going. But that night, they have to be tag team partners. And it always intrigued me. You got the people thinking, oh, the guy's going to turn. Well, the heel saying, I'm not going to screw up on this one because there's a special amount of money because of the Jose Gaspar Day, blah, 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 blah. And I just thought that sometimes if you put people that maybe shouldn't be together, people are going to come to see what's going to happen. Is somebody going to turn? It almost looks like you're putting it out there that someone's going to turn.
Now, I'll fast forward a few years here just because interesting pairings. You and Cactus, just in general, interesting pairing, but it works. You got that brawling kind of hardcore style. You guys started big feud with the Nasty Boys. What do you think about Knobs and Sags, those two crazy, stiff bastards?
Somebody should have smartened them up. When we were in Philadelphia, remember the street fight we had in Philadelphia with Schultz?
Yes, I was going to get that. Slamboree 94. That match is awesome.
I walked in. I told Knobs, I said, "Do me a favor, get up and punch me as hard as you can in my face, because you're killing me out there with your working punches." Sags hit me with a trash can that had been split, and he split my forearm open. And on bad days like today, where it's gloomy and wet, I can still feel it. I mean, those guys. But here's the crazy thing: those guys drew money because they were different.
Yep.
Completely different. And they drew money with everybody. The Road Warriors. They drew money with the Steiners. I mean, they were big in Japan. They drew in WWF. They drew money. They were a very, very solid team. Now, you knew you were going to get bounced around, but you knew you had to lay it in on them. And they were probably the best as a booker. They were the best good cop, bad cop team I ever saw. You know, when you see this one, the movies, the good cop, bad cop, they're
Oh
interrogating.
yeah. Yep.
They were the best I ever saw in my life. You know what I mean? I'd let them go on and on and on, and I'd listen to them. I say, God, that was Oscar-winning guys, and then they look at me and look at each other, and they start laughing. I mean, they probably didn't get the credit they deserved because at that time there were so many great tag teams in wrestling, but they were right up there and worked with everyone. So to me, they're very underrated.
They were awesome to me. I always liked them. I always enjoyed them. Whoever they're wrestling, you're right, Steiners, Road Warriors, the Hearts, whoever. I mean, they always had great matches. Stiff as hell. They're not kind of going to be your traditional catch can wrestling and armbar stuff. They're going to be brawling style, but usually great matches. Public Enemy, Harlem Heat. I always had great feuds.
Yeah, Arnie Anderson used to crack me up. He'd come in and they'd be sitting there and I'd say, "Where did you park the 18-wheelers? I don't want to park behind you and get stuck in again." And they say, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Aren't you the truck drivers?" The Polish truck drivers. Oh God, they were funny. Good
That's
God.
great. Hey, that day at Slamboree 94, you and Cactus win the WCW Tag Team titles in that awesome match with Schultz as the special guest referee and Forster. Was it always kind of just like grand plan, like, yeah, we should win the tag titles? It's time for it. This great feud. We got to culminate it with you guys winning the titles.
Yeah, and the Schultz there too. In Philly. I actually, it was never picked up, but I have a Philadelphia, Phillies jersey on, and I had a hat on. And when I walked out, I had a bird underneath my hat. And I lifted up my hat, and a bird flew out of my head, but it never got picked up on the camera. I got that idea years ago. Casey Stengel, the manager that was the Hall of Fame manager for the Yankees, played for the Boston Braves, and they were booing him one time because he was in a slump and he put a bird under his hat, and the people popped. So I don't know. I was trying to make anything as easy as I possibly could, and killed minutes before I had to go in with those guys.
Yes, good call. And how did the cameras miss it? Damn, I missed it too.
If you go back and take a real close look, you can see it's almost like something's thrown at my head when it took the flight from my hat. I look back, I should have had Frankie the Parrot, who would have been colorful, huh?
Oh yeah, with Coco, yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been a good one. When you guys are teaming and you win the tag titles and you're going along, you're going to hold the titles for a few months and stuff. Are you thinking like long term with the team of like an end game, or you're not really thinking that far?
No, I was thinking that far. My end game was I got to get like Cactus B on his own, and we don't need these titles, and they need to get on the Steiners or the Road Warriors or even to the Nasties or whoever.
Yeah, I think you end up losing them to Pretty Wonderful, Roma and Orndorff.
Yeah, and we ended up working with them for a while in Europe when we went on the European tour. So, and then didn't the Orndorff and they have run with the Nasty Boys after that.
Yep. Yep.
So I knew that we were just to be passing the belts back to somebody.
For
And
the
Mick
end,
needed to be on his own.
so for the end game, Mick's gonna be on his own.
Yeah.
Are you thinking he's gonna be upper card, mid card? Like, where did you kind of think he was gonna be as far as on his own? Maybe main event, or no way, not with Hogan there.
I never thought that Hogan would work with Mick. And that's no disrespect to Hogan. Hogan had his own crew, and they were his crew because he drew money with 90% of them. And he was very cautious about bringing anybody in to his circle, and again, rightfully so, that he wasn't sure of. And again, you and I talked about people looking at Mick not the way we see Mick. There were still some people that didn't look at Mick the way we looked at Mick, you and I.
I wonder if he got super over. Like, remember we had been talking about Pillman and Hogan said no way, not working with. Then all of a sudden he got over and he wanted to work with. You think that would be a possibility? Obviously, we'd have to change time and have to change history. But if he got so over, Hogan, you think would want to work with him?
I think you're right. He would have if we had changed time. But the difference was Brian was so unique for that time. And not saying that Mick wasn't, but Brian was, it was like people actually bought that Brian was crazy. And the other thing is, just as Brian was getting over, that's when he wanted to work with him before he got way over. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have ended up working with Mick if I was smart enough to have laid out a great plan and step by step hand fed Mick people that he could see that this would work. I think that on my own is my mistake not doing that.
As far as that match we kind of talked about way earlier in the episode, loser leaves town, you versus Mick at Fall Brawl 94. Why quote unquote loser leaves town? What was going on? Was his contract up? Did Bischoff want him gone? What was the backstory there?
I should know this, but there was a problem. And I don't know what time has gone by, but the problem had something to do with this. In Mick's contract, during that period, they used to allow guys to work overseas. And Mick had come in for that match where he dressed in the taxi coming back from, I think it was in Europe or I know he was in Europe. He was either in Germany or Belgium, but he dressed in the thing, and Eric, they didn't come to deal on the contract. And I think that the WWE had contacted Mick and said, well, we don't have a place right for you right now, but maybe in 6 months or a year from now, we'll have a place. And when I came to WCW, there was a hole in FMW in wings to be filled. And I told Victor Quiones, you could probably get Cactus and fill my hole pretty easily with Cactus. So it wasn't that Mick didn't have anywhere to go. And I think Mick wanted to spread his wings. And especially when he was over there, he got to work with Terry, who was his idol, and Sabu and different guys, and got a lot of attention on himself. and gave JR a great chance to say, listen, this guy drew everywhere, including Japan. Because that still meant something back then.
Yep. And with him kind of, loser leaves town, you beat him, he's gone. One of those things too is Bischoff just not going to want to do anything. Like he's not going to really want to push him. He's not going to really care if he's gone. Is that one kind of like basically the gist of it?
Yeah, and I think that probably is what month was that? We're coming up to
That was September '94.
Okay. So October 31st is end of the fiscal year, pay wise.
Okay. The fiscal year, yeah.
Yeah, fiscal business year ends October 31st. So maybe Eric had to do some budget cutting too. So that's why I was wondering if it was September, October. That's why I thought maybe I don't think there was any heat there. I think it was like things just didn't line up, and both of them ended up being good for both of them. And Eric letting Cactus go, which I was sorry to see, but maybe he would have got caught up in the logjam. Maybe we wouldn't be talking about the Hell of a Cell match if he had stayed. So everything worked out for Cactus.
Think about it too. WWF does this all the time too. They'll have budget cuts. Let's just say '94. Steve Austin's going to be leaving. Like you said, Mick Foley's going to be leaving. A bunch of guys are kind of going to be. Ron Simmons will eventually be moving out, and all these guys are kind of going to be moving out. All of a sudden, the honky tonk bands of the world and the macho mans, who are probably a little bit more expensive on the more expensive side, are coming in. So, right, is that also the thing too? It's like, okay, budget cut here, get here. Now we have money to go out and attract Macho Man, or now we can get this bigger name star, which kind of in the end would hurt WCW because obviously Austin and Foley become two of the biggest stars of all time. But at that point in time, it's like, oh crap, we can get Randy Savage. Let's nail him. Let's get him.
Right. And you lose 5 guys that you have been caught in a logjam, and you can get Randy Savage, and you haven't altered your budget much, right? Because they don't care where the money goes, whether it's 5 guys or 1 guy, as long as you stay within the budget. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand that Eric had to do. He had to be very aware of the budget end and stay within the budget.
Yep. Was he ever going to win the world title? He feuded in 1993. He feuded with Big Van Vader, especially Havoc. They had that awesome Texas Death Match. Was he ever going to win the title? No, or no, definitely not.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And hey, the guy lost his ear, and they didn't make a big thing about that either.
Yeah, why? That's weird.
I wasn't there then. I was in Japan, and I never understood that. Here's a guy that lost his ear. I mean, the closest thing to that was 30 years prior to that was Killer Kowalski and Yukon Eric, and they went 30 years with that angle and drew money all around the world. I mean, losing an ear, you can't figure out how to do something. And there's actually film of it. I've seen the film. Have you, John?
Yes. Gross and weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, incredible, how it was done. And that could have drawn money.
And have you ever seen the Saturday night WCW Saturday Night match with those guys where he was telling Vader to lay it in? Vader legit knocks him out, punching him. He literally just goes like this and just starts punching him, takes off the glove, punching him, and that was all Foley's idea. A little sadistic a little bit for Mick.
I think so. I mean, I would want Vader punching my head. I'm no Paul Orndorff, so
yeah.
Yeah. So,
and they say with people on the sheet like, oh, I'm working Vader. Like Sting obviously would be okay with it. He'd love working Vader, likes that style. But most of the guys would hate working Vader, or he'd be stiff or something. But Foley was like, yes, okay, and like thinking of stuff of how he can get his ass kicked. Is that a strange behavior?
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing about wrestling it's changed now. But back in the era we're talking about, if you went to a psychiatrist and you laid on the couch, the psychiatrist after 30 minutes would be laying with you. You know what I mean? If you cut yourself now, don't they send you to a institution? You're
Hmm.
institutionalized,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Explain. Say that again to me, Mr. Foley. You had him punch you as hard as you could in your head, and then you took a razor blade and stuck it in your head, and then this is after you did it because you wanted to keep up the feud because you lost your ear. There'd be somebody knocking on the door and fitting you for a straitjacket. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep.
So, I mean, the whole thing about wrestling is that there's a lot of different personalities that make it up. But I think during this time, this was so competitive, John. And think about this. And this just hit my head when we were talking about it. The difference in money. If from the territorial days to now, I mean, people, correct me if I'm wrong, do sometimes people make $2 million in a payday at WrestleMania?
Possibly, yeah. I don't
I
know about
remember, I remember,
who, but
I remember Hogan got the first one with
Hogan for sure. Yeah, WrestleMania 5, I think he got a couple million.
Well, he got $1 million the first time with because Jim Barnett told me the story. He had the payoffs at $750, and Vince told him no, bump him up to $1 million. So I
Wow.
mean, you're talking about a lot of money, and there was a lot of competition going on.
Now, as far as Mick and you, have you like been friends with him over the years? Or I mean, do you talk? Like, what's the relationship, or if is there any? Because it seems like you would be almost in the like Terry Funk category, where he would be a protege of yours, or something similar, because he would love your style and the way you went about wrestling and your brawling style and stuff. So, do you guys have any like that kind of mentor protege relationship at all?
No, I don't think so. I think that I would say that Terry's his mentor, that's for sure. And I think that I'm under the same learning tree that Mick is. Terry has been influential to me throughout my career, but Mick Foley is a special breed of cat. And when I see Mick, we're very friendly. We talk, laugh. Uh, but it's hard when you're not seeing somebody all the time anymore. And, time separates people.
Absolutely. How come Mick never became a booker or a writer? Because he's so smart. Obviously, his books were number one bestsellers. He always is writing, and probably one of the best wrestling books ever, if not the best wrestling book ever, was Have a Nice Day. So, how come he never became? It seems like such a smart guy that would be a slam dunk for him.
I think it would be too. I don't know why. I think it would be too. Isn't this one of his children in the office there?
Yeah, Dewey's in the creative team. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't see why he wouldn't be. He'd be great, I think, to bring Mick in.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great writer. That to me, I'm surprised. Did he ever come up with ideas and stuff with you in WCW of like, hey, let's do this, let's do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, when Mick and I were together, he would come up with stuff all the time and never hesitate. I mean, Mick is a very smart guy, and I was glad to listen to Mick because Mick's ideas drew money. There were guys' ideas that 98% of the time it drew a lot of money.
Where would you rank him as far as like draws? I mean, you got the Hogans of the world, which is like the tippy top. Then Austin's probably a step below, and you got the Rock, Undertaker. I know you say a great draw, of course. And you got a bunch of guys that are just big names, big draws. Where do you kind of rank Foley amongst those legends and those names?
Mick is, he's in the top 10. I mean, and you're talking Nash, Hall, Rock, Austin, Triple H, Sting, Rick. I mean, it goes on and on. But if you're doing a top, it's lately I've been watching on YouTube about the top 5 basketball players. And I look at what they say, and as time goes on, you have a tendency to forget guys.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a basketball fan at all, John?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. How do you forget Bill Russell, who won 11 championships?
Right. Yep.
It's because time has gone by, right?
Yep.
So Mick Foley definitely deserves to be on the top 10 list, in my estimation.
Who else, just by chance, by curious, who's on the top 5 basketball? Was Bill Russell, I guess, what didn't make the top? Who's in the, obviously Michael Jordan's got to be on there, right?
It was Michael, LeBron. Some people had different answers, but it was usually Michael, LeBron, Kareem, Magic,
Larry Bird.
Larry, and who was the fifth one?
Wilt, maybe? Wilt Chamberlain?
Wilt, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
he averaged 50 points a game that one season, remember?
Yeah. Yep.
100 points in a game.
And I always say he was so dominant and that Bill Russell used to beat him all the time. Well, Russell must be better than him that he keeps winning. You got to kind of throw that in the mix.
Yeah, and the other thing was Larry Bird won MVP 3 years in a row. In the next 3 years, he was second. That's pretty amazing, right?
Yep.
But there's sometimes you can't put people in different eras, you know what I mean? But to me, winning is winning, and Russell won 11 championships. The other thing is, did you know, John, that Wilt was letterman at Kansas for the shot put?
No, didn't know that.
And Wilt at that time was one of the first men ever to military. You know what military press is, where you take it off the ground, you just be an Olympic lift?
Yep.
It did 400 pounds at 7'2", which is almost impossible for leverage.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
usually the shorter guys are good at the military press.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I hate that. I mean, I'm not a LeBron fan. I'm not really a hater either, but I hate that he always gets lumped in because it's on everybody's mind now that he's so dominant. But then you start missing the other guys just because that's on your mind now and focus. You forget the other guys.
Right.
Always happens.
Oscar Robinson
always gets forgot. Yep. Jerry West always gets forgotten.
West. Yeah. I mean, the logo for the NBA is Jerry West.
Yeah. How could they forget?
Yeah.
I'll always say Jordan, though, is by far, I think he's the best. But that's just me. I just got to throw it there. And I also love a very underrated guy, and you may agree or not agree, much more recent player, though. Tim Duncan always gets forgotten.
Yes.
I think he was awesome.
He was great. Yeah, he was great. Yeah, I'm a big Duncan fan. Yeah.
A huge Spurs fan, so definitely. I mean, I love Tim Duncan, but always gets overlooked. Now, as far as going back to Foley and talking about him, do you have any road stories with him? Maybe some rib stories? Does he drink at all? I mean, he's a party guy or no?
No, he's on a partier. Mick was a guy that went right to his room, or if he didn't go to his room, he found some fan to bring him to his house and cook for them, and he'd sleep in their bed. Mick's a trip.
Is he a ribber at all? Did he joke around or no?
No. There used to be some real serious ribbers, and then there were guys who were casual ribbers, and then there were guys that were all business. But Mick was all business. He laughed, and he had a great, friendly personality and a great sense of humor.
He definitely is a very, very nice guy. I've interviewed him a few times. He was super duper nice, super cordial. Came on just very easy to deal with, very nice. You wouldn't think oh, this is some huge star. You would think this is just, some schmo. Like the way he acts, like the way he carries himself. He doesn't carry himself as if like he's just like this huge star. It's like, hey, you're the guy that kind of killed off WCW. Shouldn't he be more cocky? But he's not at all. He's a very easygoing guy.
I think he has a very, very good view on life. He's a family man. He is very good with children. He's just has his priorities straight.
Great guy. Now, as far as Foley's legacy, how do you kind of, summarize Mick Foley? Obviously, he was Cactus Jack. He's Dude Love. He's really Mick Foley too, the character, the commissioner. He played Mankind. He's all these different guys. He's crazy. He's doing all this stuff. But how do you kind of summarize his legacy on wrestling?
I think he's much more important than people give him credit for. As you said, you and I pointed out, 800,000 channels switched.
Yep.
Could anybody do that today, John?
Not a chance.
I'm going to ask you that question one more time, so I want our fans to understand what you just said. Could anybody do that today?
Nope, not a chance.
Okay. To me, that's the most amazing thing in the wrestling business.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.